Let's get real, girlfriends. How is it that we have had babies, managed families, worked our butts off, and hit midlife, still unclear about our own plumbing? We whisper about leaking when we laugh or cry. We are quiet about the pain during sex, all the while pretending like everything's fine, but it's not. And we deserve better. This episode of the Midlife Reset is your permission slip to get curious, get informed, and take back control of your pelvic health, your pleasure, and your confidence. I'm talking today with the one and only Dr. Teresa Irwin, also known as the vaginacologist, about everything they never taught us in health class, but they should have. This conversation is bold and eye-opening and just what midlife women everywhere need right now. So, welcome to episode 22 of the Midlife Reset Podcast with Cheryl Gordon. I educate midlife women on sleeping better, feeling stronger, and losing weight using the tools of yoga and mindfulness. And today, I want to expand this to include our sexy bits. I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Teresa Irwin. After initially training as a nurse, Dr. Irwin became one of less than 1,500 board certified specialists in female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery, also known as urogynecology. She practices in Texas and has repeatedly been selected as the top doctor in that state and a top OBGYN nationally as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Irwin, for spending time with us today. I've been saying doctor, but you actually enjoy being referred to as the vaginacologist, yes?
Yes, yes, definitely. After so many years of prescribing medications, doing surgeries, I realized that a lot of what I treat could be prevented through early education so that women don't have to end up in my OR. And this is, for women who suffer from vaginal problems, bladder problems, bowel dysfunction. And my goal is to improve the quality of life for women all over the world. And that's why I'm really proud to call myself the vaginacologist. Let me tell you how that came about. So we have three sons, and our oldest son, when he was in high school, was talking to a group of friends, and they were talking to their about their families. And one guy says, "Hey, dude, what is it that your mom does for a living?" And he's 15, 16 years old at the time, and hears me talking about vaginas all day long. So he's like, "Vaginacology?" So when he told me that story, I was like, "Mijo, that's perfect. That's exactly what I do." And guess what? Whenever I say that, nobody questions what it is that I do. Versus when I tell them I'm a urogynecologist, they don't necessarily know, but this makes it easier.
I love that your son coined it. That's and
He
15-year-old boys.
did. And
How
and
could that be more perfect?
he also created our logo for the vaginacologist. It's a beautiful logo. It's a vulva, and in the middle is a silhouette of a female. So kind of cool.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love family businesses. But I have to be honest with you, Dr. Irwin, I get emotional when I start talking about this. You were talking about like the very essence of being a woman, and we have been socialized, I think, to ignore ourselves, feel shame about admitting that we have any concerns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and unfortunately, this education is not necessarily easily accessible, and it's not taught adequately in school, if at all. And unfortunately, women have a huge risk of developing bladder, bowel, and vaginal dysfunctions that cost a lot of time, money, energy, happiness, takes away from that. So my goal is to empower women to take control of their reproductive health through preventative education.
Amen, sister. I just can't thank you enough for going to bat for women everywhere, especially visiting with us today. I'm just starting this podcast journey, and the best part has been meeting amazing women like you, Dr. Irwin. I'm just learning so much, and it's a privilege to be able to bring this information to everyone who needs it. So let's get specific about that education that you offer. Over 50% of women will experience incontinence at some point in their lives and not seek enough support. I did an episode with my own pelvic floor physiotherapist. For those who are following the podcast, that was episode number 10. Put a link in the show notes to that one. So I am definitely of the cohort. I calved out a couple babies as well. what would you like women to know if they are leaking in their undies or afraid to be too far from a restroom?
Well, there's a lot to, a very lengthy answer to that question. So I'm just going to do a quick little summary because I know we'll probably touch upon those more specifically later in this podcast. So um, the main ones are going to be proper Kegel exercises. Most of us don't do them correctly. I'll be the first to admit that I didn't until I really delved into my subspecialty. Proper toilet positioning, whether it's to pee versus to poop, avoiding certain bladder irritants that make the bladder contract more frequently and urgently. How to drink water. Believe it or not, there is a correct way on how to drink water. And all of this does take time, energy, patience, but it is very important that we learn these things because we can mitigate some, maybe not all, but some of the problems that we developed as a result of bringing new life into the world.
And just wear and tear and gravity. Now I'm so excited about what you're saying. Let's start with the Kegels. Are they helpful all the time? So often on the internet, or if you're in a group of women, it's like the final solution. Are you doing your Kegels? So can you expand on that a bit?
Sure. So they are very important. They're central to a lot of the preventative things that you can do, and they're very simple if you learn how to do them correctly. Now, they are not necessarily helpful for all women. So, for example, a woman who has painful bladder syndrome, or the old term is interstitial cystitis, that's actually going to exacerbate those symptoms. So, for most women, I will say they're very important. So, one of the ways I like to describe on how to do it, most of us think that Kegel exercises means holding your pee or squeezing your urethral sphincter. But in fact, it's much more important to squeeze your anal sphincter. Yes, I said it, your anal sphincter. And the reason being is if you look at the musculature of the pelvic floor, the muscles around the urethra are very, very small, very small. The muscles around the anal sphincter are huge. So you are definitely incorporating much more strength by squeezing your anal sphincter.
Okay. In yoga, we call that Ashwini Mudra for all my yogi listeners.
Ah.
Now, I do teach classes on pelvic floor function as a yoga therapist,
Love it.
and invariably someone texts me the next day that their friend at work says Kegels are the only way to go. So I think this education piece is so important about working with the larger muscles of the pelvic floor. Now, you also are wonderful at what you mentioned about the correct position for peeing or pooping. Could we talk about that a little bit?
Sure, sure. So I actually have several little educational videos on that, but I'll just give you a brief rundown. The easiest way to do it is to basically lean forward on the toilet with your elbows above your kneecaps and your feet flat on the floor. And the reason for that is because 1/3 of the the bladder lies below the urethra being the pee tube. So if you have that little 1/3 pocket, that if you don't lean forward, you may not empty your bladder fully. If you think about it, think about a glass and a bottle of water. You pour the bottle of water into the glass, and if you only go up to this position, you're left with water in there. You got to go all the way. And that's why it's important to do that. There's a couple of other ones. You can turn around on the toilet and hug the bowl, leaning forward. That's another way that you can do it. You can pee like a guy, stand up. There's a way to do it that you want to do properly, because otherwise you might pee on yourself for your clothing. But I teach that as well. You can also, so I have a funny story. One of my very good friends is very, very germ phobic. And so she will literally stand on the toilet seat, stand on the toilet
There's a
seat.
balancing act.
And here's the crazy thing. She may be drinking alcohol or be in heels, and she will still do that.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I don't know how in the world she could do that. But anyway, one time she took, when our oldest son and her son are essentially the same age, and she was, when they were 3 years old, took them to the bathroom at a public restroom, and she does her usual thing. And her son's used to seeing her do that, but my our son is not. So he's like, uh, you have a hairy vagina. And so she was so appalled at this that she said, please do not tell your father. Please don't tell your father. So immediately when she drops him off at our house, guess who tells my husband? her. She couldn't stand not saying the story. But anyway, so yes, you can stand on the toilet, just be careful. And then another way is that you can use a pee funnel. So it's kind of like a penis, right, that you attach there to the outer surface, and you pee standing up straight into the toilet. And that's great for camping and that sort of thing. Okay, so
That's
that's
working
several
for
pee
me.
positions. The pooping position that's ideal is to use a squatty potty. So it's about 7 to 9 inches in height, and you put your feet on there, and it elevates your legs. And the reason for that is because around our anus, there's a muscle called the puborectalis muscle. And when you're sitting straight up like this, it kinks it. But when you elevate your legs, it unkinks it. So allows you to empty fully. And a lot of women don't necessarily know that they're not emptying their bowels fully, because they don't, because the poop can be higher up in the rectum, where you don't have the sensation like you do in the near the anus. And so they don't necessarily realize that they've been not fully emptying. And it's amazing how much easier it makes it to go. And also will reduce your risk of getting what's called a rectocele. That's where the rectum starts to protrude into the vagina because of putting that pressure on there. And so anyway, there you go.
Wow. Okay, I have some research to do. So all of these videos are available through your website. I'll make sure that that obviously is linked in the show notes so our listeners can find these things.
They're actually it's easier to find them on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, I'll put those links as well.
Great.
And I know that you have the educational booklets on your website as well. I
Yeah, the
downloaded the
PD.
peeing
Correct.
positions already.
Yeah.
Um, and so that such simple things, little habits that our moms didn't teach us. I wish we learned all this stuff in school. Why
Mhm.
might there be such a lack of education around this kind of stuff, around really sex in general?
Well, so around this kind of stuff, so and then I'll address sex in a minute. Um, it takes a lot of time and effort as a doctor to go over all this stuff because you can't just say it. You have to actually explain it, right? And it's not worth essentially. I mean, I think it's worth their time, but it's, we're designed, we're trained in school to treat problems, not prevent them. And so therefore it becomes a time inefficiency factor. And so my rule is every patient that I see for these kind of problems, I send them to a pelvic floor therapist because she has the time to spend with them to go over these things in detail. I kind of on my website, I'm kind of an imposter because all the things that I put on there are things that I learned from the pelvic floor therapist. But I will tell you, I will not operate on someone if they have not seen her at least one time. They can obviously see her more than that, but minimum requirement for me to operate on you is to have seen her because I will tell you, and don't tell her because her head will explode, that she is a huge reason why my surgeries are so successful. So it's stuff that you want to implement because after surgery, you don't want these things to recur. So doing all these things will help prevent a recurrence.
Right. So pelvic floor physio. Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
on board. So the
100%.
sorry, Teresa, go ahead.
I just said 100% super
Yeah.
important.
So the other thing that we have been mentioning or alluding to is libido. I know you
Okay.
hear this all the time, Dr. Irwin, from midlife women. You have a booklet on your website where you talk about the 7 organs of sexual desire.
Mhm. Yes. So, um, I forgot to mention the sex part. Why is it not discussed? Well, it's been so taboo for so many years. I am a prime example of that. I grew up, I was raised Catholic in the Catholic religion, and sex is taught in that religion that it is only for procreation.
Mhm.
And it's a shame that that's how it's been. And I lived in shame for a very long time, even though I waited for till I was in my 20s before I had sex. But even so, I was led to believe that I was basically a whore because I had sex before marriage.
Mhm.
And so that's one of the many reasons. Also, it does require time to explain and discuss and that sort of thing. And most of the education has been geared towards male sexual function. It's rarely been geared towards female sexual function. I don't know how many, there's several dozen, I would say, medications and or procedures that have been studied for male sexual function. And there's actually only one medication out there that is FDA approved for female libido. And it's only for premenopausal women, not even menopausal women. So those sexual organs of sexual desire, the first one, the primary one, is right up here. So anything, it's your brain, basically. If there's anything that's bothering you, whether it's fatigue or stress, interruptions, like with children, body image, you're pissed off at your partner, whatever it may be, if any of those are happening, that's going to inhibit your desire to want to have sex. So you've got to address those issues first.